So today, we are not only simply introducing a member of Congress, we are welcoming a historic collaboration, a practical public servant, a business leader who truly understands small and medium-sized enterprise, and a proud Korean-American leader who continues to bring Korea and the United States close together. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in giving warm welcome Congresswoman Marilyn Strickland.
Good afternoon, everyone. I believe that is the best introduction I have ever received in my entire career as an elected official. Thank you so much to my good friend, Councilman General. Well, it's my honor to be here with you all today, and I was telling someone I did not know that this building that I have driven past 1,000 times actually was home of the K-Startup Center, and that you've all been here for 7 years. I had no idea, so you learn something new every day. I want to extend my sincere gratitude to Chami Rowe, Harry Jung, and Brian Foss at the K-Startup Center for the support they provide to our Korean business community as you navigate what is really uncertain right now. And I have some written remarks, but as usual, I go off script. So if you think about where the United States is right now, and this is not a conversation about who you vote for in 2024, I don't care. But I do care about today. And today, we have to ask ourselves, what type of certainty do business owners have here in the United States about making investments and being successful? In addition to that, we have to ask ourselves, what are we doing to attract investment from our good ally, the Republic of Korea? Those are two important questions. And as I think about the U.S.-Korea Technology Prosperity Bill that was signed in October 2025, that's a very positive sign. But as I said to the consul often, I love it when we sign deals. I love it when we sign MOUs. I love it when we get a proclamation. But where is the action taking place to attract investment, to support businesses? That's what matters more than anything else. So please know that in my role as a member of Congress, I will always be dedicated to, yes, the photographs and the MOUs and the handshakes, but we actually must take action. That matters more than anything else. So I want to make sure that we all understand that the Korean American community, and especially businesses, are invaluable to the United States. And I think sometimes when we think about the influence of the Republic of Korea and Korean Americans here in the US, we love our K-pop, we love our K-dramas, we love those things a lot. We love the food and the culture. But we also have to think about economic prosperity for all people. And that is so incredibly important. If we are able to provide jobs that pay well with good benefits, that is the foundation of what people think of when they think of the American promise. And I tell folks, it doesn't matter what your background is, what language you speak at home. If you're here in the United States, there is a basic promise that people expect. You have housing you can afford, whether you're renting or owning. You have access to a good education, safe neighborhoods, stable jobs, the ability to start a business, access to health care that will never break you financially. And for some of us who have been in the game for a long time, the ability to retire with dignity. But more than anything, when I think of the flag, when I think of what my father fought for, what so many people around the world fought for, this is about democracy and freedom. The freedom to love, the freedom to worship, the freedom to be part of this society and welcome, regardless of what language you speak at home, or where your ancestors come from, or where you come from. That's the American promise. And for too many people right now, they feel as though they do everything we ask them to do, work hard, play by the rules, pay their taxes, and it doesn't feel like it's real sometimes. So I'm here today as a member of the U.S. House of Representatives to let you know we are working very hard to restore that promise to everyone who calls this place home. And part of that promise is the meeting that I had earlier with a lot of startups in amazing industries, in defense, in AI, in healthcare. And think about how each of those things touch what I just talked about with the American Promise. So we want to ensure that we are able to partner with Korea-based businesses and attract investment here to create good jobs. And that relationship has to be reciprocal. So when US companies are doing business in Korea, we want to be welcomed with open arms. We want to be treated fairly, because that's what a true partnership is about. It's about reciprocity. We welcome you, we treat you well here, and we want the same when we invest in the Republic of Korea. I think about so much happening right now in the world, and it's hard not to talk about the World Cup. And even though our team did not do as well as we had hoped, I still remind folks that if you don't watch the headlines, if you don't watch the news and social media, people around the world have a shared humanity. We just want to get to know each other, enjoy each other's company, explore the cities and places we don't know. Because at the end of the day, we just want to be loved, to give love, and to enjoy just being people. We're all the same. It's not that much drastically different. Although you think the way stories are told, there's something so terribly different about all of us. Are we unique in culture and language and history? Absolutely. But this is a conversation about how we can work together, how we can continue to collaborate, how we make everyone feel welcome on both sides of the ocean. I'm going to wrap up by really just thanking you all for being here. I know right now, again, things seem very uncertain with tariffs, with wars raging around the world. But please know this, the partnership between the United States and the Korean American community will forever be strong. And the relationship with the United States of America and the Republic of Korea is ironclad. It's not just about defense and having 30,000 soldiers on the DMZ. This is about education exchange, cultural exchange, tourism, collaboration. How do we keep working together? And while you read so many headlines about things happening around the world, please know that I, as a proud American woman, a daughter of Korea, will always do everything I can to elevate our community and maintain that strong partnership. Thank you for letting me be here. 감사합니다. I'm supposed to take some questions. So I see someone in the audience who's running for Seattle City Council. Do you have a question? Would you please introduce yourself and ask your question?
Thank you for the opportunity. My name is Julie King, and I am a candidate for Seattle City Council District 5, which is North Seattle, and that's actually where historically many of the Korean Americans started their businesses because it was affordable. And I appreciate your emphasis and partnership, but also the economic vitality that we need. So at the congressional level, you're doing your best to fight it, but at the local level, what can we do as council members and also encourage the mayor to consider new perspectives? Because last time I came here, we're talking about Seattle and Washington State, and we did not have a single representation of the decision makers at the table. So I'm so grateful that you're at the table, but what can we do to support your initiatives?
Great, well, thank you. I almost called you council member. I'm speaking into existence. So, you know, it's interesting, when I heard the economic landscape report, there was a conversation about what is happening in Washington State and Seattle with regulations from housing to business to taxes. And what I tell people is this, Julie, that, you know, Washington State is a hot, it has so much talent here, so much brain power. Our universities, talented people. It's why we attract so much investment when it comes to technology. But the one ask I would have of local officials for when you win, and this is hard, because being able to speak up and speak out when people around you are making you feel terrible for saying, we support business. It's okay to earn a good living in this city, in this state. That's not an easy thing to do. That takes courage. But if there's one thing I know about Korean women, we don't scare easily. And so when you get elected, use your voice. And sometimes it just takes one person to say, can we please publicly push back on this? And you'll be surprised at how many others will come along. So I think my challenge to you is like, be the leader that Seattle needs and encourage others to speak up. The other thing I will say too, though, is that I think sometimes, we see these things happening, we watch these laws getting made, and then we talk about it after the fact. Governor Bob Ferguson has formed an economic development task force. Is there anyone from our community on that task force? Well, I think the governor should know that we want to be represented on that task force. It's going to be a very powerful group, and I believe he is fully aware of some of the challenges that some of the recent laws are going to have with small businesses. So I'd say do that. So use your voice and speak up on behalf of our community, but also say to the governor, we need you to think carefully about how these policies are affecting us, and I want a seat on that task force. And there's a saying, it says, if you're not at the table, you will be on the menu. Hi.
Congresswoman Strickland, thank you for your thoughts and comments on staff of the Greater Seattle Korean Association. Thank you for your comments on the World Cup. Recently, as Council Crew mentioned, we just did K-Fest. That was over 10,000 people at Seattle Center. But more importantly, it was a celebration of cultures. It was our community together with the Hispanic community and multiple different ethnicities. So there were some discussions about, the economic impact of the World Cup here in Seattle. I mean, USA made it to the round of 16. Not so sure about Korea, but we all did our best. So talk a little bit about the impact that on our local economy here that the World Cup had, and is that something that can be sustainable? And how does that affect us here specifically to the Korean community, perhaps?
So I heard about the event that drew 10,000 people to watch the U.S.-Mexico match, which was very exciting. And as you saw, if you watched on television, just how warm and welcoming the Mexicans were to the Koreans who visited. And I'm not going to go into this, but there's a long history of Korean people in Mexico. I'll just leave it there. That's not new. We have known each other for a long time. But your question, Sam, is how do we maintain the momentum, right? And I've read some articles where business leaders of the Downtown Association and even folks who were not really fans of the mayor said, look how amazing Seattle looked during the World Cup. It was clean, it was welcoming, people felt good about being downtown in the waterfront. So the question is, how do you maintain that? Because you can't just shove everything in the closet when company comes home and then when they leave, everything's a hot mess again. You have to think about how do you sustain this. As far as the economic impact goes, I think there are a couple ways to think of that. When you host a big event, whether it's the Olympic Games or the World Cup, the city has to make a pretty big investment to do that. And so I don't want to make sure that's not lost on you. But how do we make sure that the businesses surrounding the area get to be part of something? And even too, the power of a QR code is pretty amazing. And you think about the tens of thousands of people who were in the downtown area near Lumen Field during that. Are there any of our businesses that could have had a presence even just through a simple QR code? I love that the event we had was at the Seattle Center, but we could have done events closer on one of the piers. And so I'd say just being more present, more visible, and not being afraid to say, we want a presence here.
Hi, Sharon. Hi, thank you very much. I'm going to ask a question that is not popular, and I'm going to bring it up.
See, I told you, brave.
So increased ICE activities right in my backyard and targeting my fellow Korean American community, all my pop businesses. I'm really angry. And also when you talk about economic development, you can't forget the ecosystem. That's right. Many of our immigrant communities are really, it's not small business, it's mom and pop survivals. Right. And they are impacted by what's going on. Now I feel like community, I don't know if they don't know what to do, but I'd love to see your wisdom on what we can do to really join you in this fight. I know you're working very hard, but boy, I feel like more needs to be done, and I think people are lost as to what exactly can be done.
No, and you raise a good point, because the transgressions of this administration weaponizing immigration enforcement is a local issue because the local communities have to deal with it. So the first thing I would say, Cheryl, is in language-specific information, people have to know what their rights are. And I think sometimes when you are not from a country, or even if you are an immigrant in your second or third generation, there's a tendency to say, well, it's law enforcement, so we don't want any trouble, and let's comply. And so the instinct to fight back or say you don't have the right to do this is know your rights. And there's an organization called the Northwest Immigrants' Rights Project, and they have typically focused more on Spanish-speaking people, but that might be a place to actually think about how the Korean American community can have a presence. I will tell you though, just because you're not reading about ICE killing people in cities does not mean they are not still up to those horrible things that they're doing. They actually have detained US citizens, by the way. And they literally stereotype people and say, well, you aren't white, so you must not be legal. Or they go to places of business, or they go to different places where they know immigrants are. And so I would say know your rights, I think is important. On my end in Congress, we are doing everything we can to not give this administration another $80 billion for ICE. And let me tell you why this is important. The desire to hire more immigration officers is not just about immigration. This is, I'm going to say something on camera and I don't care. This is about a president who has no regard for the rule of law, who wants to create his own personal militia so that he can intimidate voters in places where you have to physically go vote. And think about all the things that have been happening. I'm going to go off on voting here for a second. Supreme Court decisions, trying to invalidate mail-in voting, but the Supreme Court said, no, we're not going to do that. And so it's not just an assault on immigrants. It's not just an assault on trying to intimidate people. It is an assault on voting rights. So yes, you did raise a very controversial issue, but I tell people, I'm not here to tell you who to vote for, but I do have a responsibility to tell you exactly what's going on right now.
Any more questions?
Okay, I'm going to end on a positive note though. So, doesn't matter who's in the White House, doesn't matter whether the Democrats or Republicans have the majority, we as a community need to make sure that our voices are heard. And I've heard people say to me, well, what if the Democrats take back the House and the Senate and the president is still in office? How are you going to get things done? We will pass some good bills and we will say to him, this is good for the American people, Mr. President, you should sign this into law. And so play the hand you're dealt, always try to get a better hand in the next deal, but let us not ever think that whoever's in charge means that we don't have a voice, that we should not stand up for ourselves, okay? The Republic of Korea would not be the dynamic, vibrant superpower it is today if our people gave up easily. We don't give up. We will always be there for the fight. So again, thank you for having me here today, and let's end this on a positive note.